Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Health Kick with Dr. K. Today's topic is nutrition and its complications, and I have my lovely guest, Meghan Légère, here with me today. So, yay, welcome, Meghan.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
she is a kitchen coach and private chef. And before we get into like what all that is, I kept the topic for today super vague on purpose because I figured that we might just flow with it. We weren't going to be super structured. We were just going to figure out, what we thought some interesting little nugs for you guys to take away and learn from. And so I just wanted to kick it off with the personal side of just how we met, which was like 3-ish months ago that I met Meghan at Caravana in Toronto this year. And my husband and I were there, and it was our first time. So we're like hunting around for other people that were wearing the same costume as us. And then we just see Meghan come up. She's like smiling. I'm like, yay, a happy person that's wearing the same costume as us. And she's like seasoned. So she was like, yay, we can like go together. And I'm like, oh, good. We have like a tour guide. So yeah, that's how we met. But Meghan probably has the other side of that.
Yeah, that's exactly. First of all, you got the pronunciation of my French last name correct. So thank you, because
You're
that's so
welcome.
rare. Um, yeah, what an amazing day, right? I was so glad to share that with you. And I remember how nervous I was my first time at Caravana, essentially in a bikini on a paved road in the middle of a big city. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to make you guys feel comfortable. And yeah, I think we had a really good time.
Hmm.
And I never, ever in a million years thought that I would be on a podcast with you now. So, what a blessing. The world works in amazing ways, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's, you know what, it's kind of great because it's one of those things like sometimes when you meet people in a formal setting, your first question is like, oh, like, what do you do? But that wasn't the first question. I was like, how do we get to the start? Right? Um, and then later on, I was like, oh, cool. You are not only like a genuinely awesome human being, you also do cool stuff that I'm like, want to learn about.
Yeah, I know. I know the connection through soca, through dance.
Mhm.
I've been working closely with a naturopathic doctor for years now, and she's just completely helped me change my life. So when I saw your handle naturopathically fit, I'm there. Come on, like what are the chances? It was pure magic for me. So
Mhm.
again, I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you
Yeah,
for this.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, the first question that came up was actually, what is a kitchen coach? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So that's essentially coming right from my heart. It's a title that I've given myself because I went through a really, I'll speak just personally. Um, I went through a pretty amazing health journey over the last year or so. And through that journey, I found that there was a lot of missing pieces in our wellness industry in people aren't getting the right support they need to eat healthy, essentially is what I felt. So kitchen coaching is my sort of way of tackling that. So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, an autoimmune disease that affects your thyroid function last year, and can kind of creep up on you. I wasn't aware until I got my blood work done on recommendation by my naturopath, and was experiencing just a lot of fatigue. But that's so easy to sort of dismiss, right? Everyone's tired all the time in this
Mhm.
sort of lifestyle that we're leading in our society right now. So I was having some hair loss, weight gain, again, things that can sort of just you can sort of explain away, right?
Mhm.
So when I hit rock bottom, I had been diagnosed with the thyroid disease and also adenomyosis, which is like a female reproductive kind of challenge, and really didn't want to be here anymore, to be honest. It was a real emotional journey. I was very unhappy. I was very unwell, and decided to make a huge change. And eating and cooking was one way that I healed myself. So my naturopath and I decided to, change the way that I eat, and
Mhm.
really start to pack my meals with a lot of nutrition, and give myself a lot of love through food. And the good news is within 6 months, I healed the Hashimoto's. It was gone. And that was just a huge day for me, like when I got the blood work back.
Mhm.
Because my family doctor had told me I'd be on medication for life. And I know a lot of people are, on thyroid medication without even knowing that there's other alternatives, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you have, any patients with that, or have any, you know, like I think it's pretty prevalent now, right? Um,
Yeah, autoimmune conditions on the whole have just absolutely skyrocketed for sure. But I just want to
yeah,
go back to what you said, which is that you actually healed from it and you changed like your nutrition, right? And
yeah,
probably changing your nutrition, you change your mindset and your habits, and everything had
exactly.
a effect, right?
Exactly. So, I had always had an interest in food. I went to culinary school and was passionate about it, but it was also a self-professed sweet tooth, and
Mhm.
um, and so it was always a struggle for me to stay consistent with healthy eating. And I'm glad you brought up mindset, because that is really what had to change first. Was my identity. I had to really change who I was. So this was not something I embarked on like a 90-day cleanse, or, a 7-week sprint or anything. I really this time went into this chapter of my life like I'm going to come out a different person. And I
Mhm.
think that that's something that, a dietitian may not tell you, right? They're going to give you a meal plan or some suggestions, but it starts up here. And that's the first part of my kitchen coaching program, is working on mindset. So
Mhm.
um I've done an intensive with Tony Robbins, who's a really well-known, person in the self-help space.
Mhm.
I've studied Atomic Habits. I don't know if you know that book
Mhm.
by James Clear. Huge for me, huge.
Mhm.
And it focuses a lot on identity change, which I feel can be kind of controversial, right? There's a lot of um, rhetoric out there about love yourself. You're perfect the way you are. Don't change, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's like, but if I'm suffering and unhealthy and unhappy, and I'm not able to fulfill the goals I want, and I don't have energy to go dancing, and I don't like the way I look in the mirror,
Mhm.
like, I think change is great in that case, right? Like, change is
Mhm.
needed.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so mindset is a key component of kitchen coaching. I can go into the other pieces
Mhm.
if now's a
Yeah,
good time.
tell
Yeah.
us more for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a three prong approach. So once we kind of start working on the mindset stuff, we look at your kitchen, and that can be a scary place to go. It's a vulnerable place, right? The
Mhm.
fridge is full of leftovers that aren't eaten, and the cupboard is full of maybe chips or things that you're not really, proud of. Your drawers are a mess. Maybe you moved into a new place and you didn't take the time to, organize it properly. So
Mhm.
um, I also have studied Marie Kondo's book, The Magic of Tidying Up, and I
Mhm.
use her principles of organization and just how to make your kitchen not pretty, because that's different. Pinterest will show you how to make it pretty with the little chalkboard labels and
Mhm.
everything organized, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But I really work on functionality.
Mhm.
So that means making it as efficient as possible to make your meals, and make it just easy to make the right choices for your
Mhm.
health. Um, so yeah, it doesn't involve a lot of costly, Tupperware items or bins or anything like that. It can
Mhm.
even be done with simple cardboard. Now, if you go into my spare bedroom, it's all I save all my shoe boxes and like
Mhm.
anything that comes in cardboard or plastic that would fit in your drawer. I'm saving it for you so that when I come to your house, we can sort of set up your tongs and your spatulas and everything you need properly,
Mhm.
um, to really optimize your space. Yeah, and make it easier because um, I feel like society right now, it's hard, right? People are working full time. If
Mhm.
you have a family to take care of, if they're involved in sports after school, like it's an uphill battle, right? And I don't know, like you can speak to your client's experience, like do they ever come to their appointments and like I know what I should be doing and I know what I should be eating, but I just can't seem to make it
Mhm.
happen.
Literally word for word. Yeah. They know
Really,
what
eh?
they're doing. They absolutely know what they need to do, and then they're just like, "Well, my day is packed from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., and it's all over again."
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And
Mhm.
I think that um, we're expected to go through that alone, right? Like there's not really, and that's where I really believe in what I'm offering as a kitchen coach is just like, you know, um, you can work out at the gym alone. I mean, it's not hard, right? Like the
Mhm.
exercises are free on YouTube. There's tons of resources, but people still find value in working with a personal trainer, right?
Mhm.
There's that accountability. There's that. I just got a text from a client last night. Like, I'm so proud of myself. I was about to hit go on Uber Eats, but I found some tuna and some lettuce and I put together, a snack for myself. And I thought,
Mhm.
and I'm in the video, like I send her a video, like, get it, girl.
Yes.
Like it's someone in your corner, right? That's
Mhm.
helping you, that's supporting you, that's talking through those weak moments, those moments where it feels hopeless and there's nothing in the fridge. I teach you how to
Mhm.
be resourceful with your leftovers and your wilted greens and all that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's I'm kind of your little secret behind the scenes sidekick in the kitchen.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there was a video on your Instagram which I really enjoyed, which was like a challenge that you had put to yourself where you were like trying to take all these like kind of oldish, wilty kind of looking stuff and like turned it into something amazing. And I was like, she's a magician, guys. Like, what happened?
Aw, that's really neat. I'm glad that resonated. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to make my content relatable. Like,
Mhm.
I think that recipe reels on Instagram are nice, right? You can go out and buy all those things that they said to buy and whatever, but that's not real life. Real life is I'm starving. I don't
Mhm.
have the time. This is what I have. How do I change these ingredients by blending them, by dicing them, by baking them, thinking of them in other forms than their current, maybe sad looking state,
Mhm.
and finding a way to use them right. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's I'm glad you like that one. I am going to
Mhm.
keep doing that.
Yeah, and as I say, super practical because how many times is somebody just looking in the back of their fridge being like, I don't know what to do with this. But
Yeah.
then if they have those experiences where they're seeing your videos and kind of laughing that they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's totally me." I'm just there being like, "What am I supposed to do with this old bag of stuff?" And then they have something to go on. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say it's not really my primary focus, but the added benefit there is a cost savings, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know the stat, but we're wasting a lot of our food, and
Mhm.
it's not actually restaurants and like the industries you think where food waste is happening. It's actually in our homes, in our fridge.
Mhm.
So it's a crazy amount. Like 30 or 40% of the food we buy ends up in the garbage. So
Mhm.
think of leaving Longos with your bag of fresh food and throwing out 40% of it before you get to the car. Like
Yeah.
it's it's not sensible, right?
Mhm.
It's not good for our wallets either. So
Mhm.
the added benefit is, you're using the food that you paid money for and that farmers worked really hard to grow. That's where my heart
Right.
bleeds, is like, that
Mhm.
way that broccoli went through a lot to get in the store for you to buy it, right? So
Mhm.
we should honor that.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of talked about like time constraints and people just being a little bit lost on the functionality even of their kitchen. What are some other challenges that you're seeing with your clients that come up?
Yeah, so I think that the first one is um, fitting in. I think that we don't really talk about that a lot. I think that one reality when I changed my life and changed my eating was that I had to get really comfortable being an outlier.
Hmm.
So that's not been I think I've sort of been the odd one out since high school. I
Hmm.
was I wasn't I wasn't smart enough to be the nerd, but I wasn't hot enough to be the cool kid. I was sort of the wanderer. I was friendly and warm, so I was friends with everyone, but I never really fit in.
Hmm.
I grew to actually really enjoy that spot.
Hmm.
If I pulled up a picture of prom in high school, everyone's in a normal dress, and for whatever reason, Megan decided that she was going to wear like a medieval, like a medieval gown.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So, it was a disaster. It did up in the back with like, a corset type of thing, and it
Hmm.
got way too tight after dinner, but in any case,
Yeah.
that's a tangent, but I've always been sort of comfortable being the outlier, and you
Hmm.
have to be if you wanna eat healthy, I feel in this day and age, you have to kinda get comfortable with that. You kinda have to
Hmm.
get comfortable with being the friend who's looking at the menu before brunch to see
Hmm.
if there's healthy options. And instead of the sugary Starbucks outing with your girl, you're inviting her over for a smoothie.
Hmm.
Like you're the weird one. And if it depends on your value system. Like if you value being socially accepted more than your health, there's a disconnect there, right?
Hmm.
And this is always going to win out.
Hmm.
So, and I think that that's where people run into problems is they can cook well at home, but when you get out into the world and, even the grocery stores have drastically changed. So since the 1990s,
Hmm.
there's 40,000 more items in
Ooh.
a grocery store now. So we have a lot more choice. And you'd think at first, like, that's amazing, right? Like
Hmm.
the aisles are stocked. Like, look at all this food. It's abundance, it's variety. But the reality is, right, is how much of that is good for us.
Hmm.
And that's another sort of uncomfortable truth that I've had to face is most of the grocery aisles now are not for me. Like I
Hmm.
don't go down them.
Right.
Snacks, chips, pop,
Hmm.
cookies, like I just they're with my new identity that I've established, it's not food that's going to nourish my body in the way that I need it to. So I spend most of my time on the perimeter of the grocery store.
Hmm.
But that's hard for people, right? That's it involves breaking habits, and programming and routine and a mindset, right?
Yeah. And I mean, what you were mentioning about the kind of being socially acceptable, that like when I talk to my patients about the factors that influence health, we talk about sleep and stress, nutrition, hydration, but we also talk about support, like who's going to be around to help you stick to this, like when you're not feeling like you want to, because I mean, I'm only going to see you like maybe once a month, like that's not enough to kind of keep you going in those times where you're falling off.
100%.
um, so just what you're saying, right? Like how comfortable is a person with being the odd person out, being like, oh well, I'm just gonna bring my own food, to this event that I'm going to. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's awkward, but you roll with it. It's okay, right?
Yeah, if you can really sort of change your language, change your it's really it goes deep, right? Like you
Mhm,
have to really I don't say that I have a sweet tooth anymore. Like that's
mhm,
who I was. It's not who I have to be going forward, you know. I'm a
mhm,
person who now eats healthy most of the time.
mhm,
So, I'm not depriving myself. I just love myself enough to feed myself really well most of the time.
mhm,
Um, and so when you're doing that most of the time, those little moments of, oh, you're at a wedding and you want a piece of the cake, or,
mhm,
you know, Americans just had their Thanksgiving, right? I'm seeing tons of posts with lots of pecan pie and pumpkin pie, and like,
mhm.
it looks delicious. I still want it, right?
Yes.
But my baseline or my foundational core mm, belief about myself has changed,
Mhm,
and that's where I try and help people because it's the wild west out there, man. Like there's a
mhm,
lot of opportunity to eat poorly. It's so
mhm,
easy. It's so
mhm.
easy, right?
Right. Well, with those 40,000 extra choices we got, I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
So, yeah,
mhm,
that's why I call it kitchen coaching. It's not I feel that the kitchen is the place where we have the most autonomy, right? So in a world where you can feel that things are out of your control, even all the negativity, the horrific things that are happening in other parts of the world right now, I really go in my kitchen and feel a sense of like I can nourish myself and like
mhm,
give myself energy and make my body feel good in the inside, and like
mhm,
that's really empowering for me.
mhm,
And I think that if you can come from that type of perspective, it's exciting. It feels good. I don't know.
mhm.
Yeah, it fuels me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important point too, is just that like we don't have a lot of control over the stress, or like some people they don't sleep well, their kids wake them up, or they're in pain, or whatever the case may be. But in those areas that you do have control, like that's huge, right? That's a huge motivator.
Exactly.
Um,
It's a really powerful way to give to yourself, to give back to yourself, to pour into yourself. You know what I mean? You can
mhm,
do it with food. It sounds a bit woo woo, but I don't know. I that's what I believe in.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And then so for when you were making your transformation, and as I say, kind of starting from the top down, um, what helped you the most? Like, what was the first steps that you were taking?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, so I think you need a big enough why.
Mhm,
And I think that that's what held me back. Before I had sort of yo-yo, my weight and health had fluctuated. I was avoiding gluten and dairy because I had been tested that I was intolerant to those, and
mhm,
so I was avoiding those. But then the cheat days started, and then it was a cheat weekend, and then it was like it can be very right. Like it's I found it very hard to sort of mitigate that type of a lifestyle. But when I hit rock bottom last year, and it was sort of, I can even go back to the email. It was really powerful. I read it the other day to my naturopath that was like
mhm,
in capitals, like, I'm ready now. Like,
mhm.
this is it.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins has a good quote. I'm going to try and not mess it up here. Is change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Mhm,
So change is uncomfortable, right? It's much easier to stay the way we are. But if you can either either it happens to you, like a blood test result, or
mhm,
all of a sudden finding out like you're insulin resistant, or you're pre-diabetic, or like it's
mhm,
going to be a different sort of wake up call for everyone, right? Maybe it's for a lot of my clients, it's they're about to have a child, right? And
mhm,
so all of a sudden it's like, oh, my body is gonna grow another human. Like, this is really important now that I take care of myself. Or
mhm,
if I can't cook for myself, how am I going to cook for my little ones when
Hmm.
they come about, right? So everyone has a different moment, but it has to be a strong why. It can't be something. I kind of stay away from working with people where it's just a casual, like, oh, I just kind of like to cook better. It's like, no, I'm talking about a life change, like I like
Hmm.
forever, not
Hmm.
like this. I want the things that I mm, build with you, I want them to last until you're 80. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that this is just who you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's key, right? Is letting somebody know that this is not just something that you're signing on for like what you were saying about a cleanse or just a week or two. Really hunkering down and deciding like, hey, is this who I'm going to show up as day in, day out, for the foreseeable future? Because it has such a profound impact on health, on your mindset, on how you show up every day in your work, in your life, etc.
Yeah, it's that's why, there I know there's a lot of people that lean on the meal boxes. I
Hmm.
did it for a while too, right? Like that
Yep.
they get delivered to your home and you've got the recipe card and stuff. Again, I think those in a pinch, if you're starting out,
Hmm.
they're a great framework, for
Hmm.
busy families, for people who maybe didn't learn how to cook from their parents, right? Like
Hmm.
that's not happening as much generationally, right? The
Yes.
more that both parents are working full time to be able to afford the housing, especially in Canada, right? Like you
Hmm.
need a double income in most cases. It means that cooking is happening less, and so the kids aren't learning. It all sort of
Yeah.
trickles down, right? And
Hmm.
so those meal prep boxes, again, they're great, but what happens when you miss that order,
Hmm.
that order deadline? Like that's what I'm trying to build, is those fundamental, like in a pinch when things get tough,
Hmm.
how are we going to be resourceful? How are we going to be resilient and be able to really feed our families still?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think these are key learnings that people definitely need. So if somebody wanted to contact you and kind of talk more about this, what are some ways that they can do that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So if you follow me on Instagram, Created by Megan is where I promote my kitchen coaching, and my link in bio has a PDF that outlines my program and it goes into more detail about it.
Hmm.
I've also got a really good recipe up there right now for a roasted grape crostini. So yeah, that's the spot to get up in my DMs. People message me all the time, so
Hmm.
I'm super, like that's what I want to do, is build connection through food. So it's through there that you can reach me.
Amazing. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the podcast because, as I say, like you opened our eyes to this whole other gap that I didn't even realize, right? That people are day in day out living with. So I really appreciate you coming out and being with us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Caitlin.
And hopefully we can get you again in January. But because I know there's so much we could talk about, and so and it's such an important topic and things that, as I say, is affecting everyone from the top down.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to go in deeper on some of the things we touched on. So I'd be honored to come back. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Alrighty, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time on Health Kick with Dr. K.